Hello, nice to see you on my channel, Hearts and Shadows. Enjoy watching.
Have you ever pour your heart out to someone only to be met with that dreaded line, "I think we should just be friends"? Yeah, that happened to me, and I will be telling you all about it today. My name is Raymond. I met Gabriella on my first day at a legal firm as an intern. The firm was one of the biggest in the city, and landing this internship had taken everything from me. I knew what was at stake. If I performed well, there was a good chance I could be retained. That alone was enough pressure to keep my head buried in work. I didn't even know her name at the time I saw her. She walked in casually, holding a case file, which she handed off at the front desk where I was seated. And I remember thinking, how can someone be this beautiful? I tried to snap myself out of it, reminding myself it was just a passing distraction. I mean, I'd had crushes before that faded with time. But with Gabriella, it felt different from the jump. I thought I'd get over it eventually. If I buried myself in work, this feeling would die off like all the others had. But it didn't. With each passing day, it only got worse. Every time she walked by, I caught myself looking up from my screen. Not even intentionally. It felt stupid, honestly. I was supposed to be laser-focused, trying to prove myself in a room full of sharp minds and overachievers. But there I was, caught up in the idea of someone who hadn't said more than hi or hello to me. Gabriella had lodged herself in my mind without even trying. One Thursday, I was seated at my desk, neck deep in some case files. That was when Gabriella walked over to my corner. I remember how she hesitated for a second before speaking, like she wasn't sure if I was the right person to ask. Her voice was soft, a little unsure, but polite. She needed help figuring out a particular clause in a contract draft our boss had asked her to review. It wasn't exactly something beyond her reach, but she said she had seen me work on a similar file a few days earlier and thought I could explain it better. That moment caught me off guard. Up until then, I had only said quick hi's and hellos to her in passing. Now, she was talking to me. I tried to play it cool, but the truth is, my brain scrambled for words that didn't sound dumb. I showed her what I knew, step by step, making sure she actually understood. We ended up talking longer than I expected about the document at first, but then a bit about work stress and deadlines. It wasn't flirtatious, just warm and human, but for me, it was everything. After she thanked me and walked away, I sat there lost in thought for a few seconds. I felt useful, seen, and important. That one conversation gave me a confidence boost I didn't even know I needed. I wasn't just another intern in the corner anymore. But that moment also made everything harder. Before, I could tell myself that my feelings for her were just surface level, that I'd eventually get over it. But after actually talking to her, whatever I felt before started growing roots. That first real interaction became the thread that started pulling me closer to something I didn't know how to untangle myself from. My lucky break came when I got paired with Gabriella on a major project. This wasn't just any task. They handed us a case that required months of dedication, precision, and a lot of long nights. For me, it was the kind of opportunity one had been silently praying for since I stepped into the building. I knew from day one that if I wanted to be retained after my internship, I had to prove myself. And this project could very well make or break that possibility. Working with Gabriella so closely, though, was a double-edged sword. On one hand, I finally had a reason to be around her, to talk to her, without it feeling forced or awkward. On the other hand, I had to constantly remind myself that this was work. I couldn't afford to get distracted, no matter how strongly I felt. But man, being around her made that harder than I'd like to admit. We spent long hours at the office, sometimes staying until the janitors started vacuuming. And when we needed to change a scene or couldn't find quiet in the building, we'd meet at cafes, sometimes even at the park, to bounce ideas off each other. Everything was about the project. But deep down, I won't lie, I enjoyed every second of those moments with her. The more time we spent together, the more I got to see the woman behind the looks. She was smart and confident without being arrogant. I started looking forward to our meetings, not because of the project, but because of her. During one of our casual work sessions over coffee, she mentioned her boyfriend. She didn't dwell on it and didn't even say his name. I tried to keep my expression neutral, but inside, I swear it felt like someone paused the world for a few seconds. I smiled, pretending like I was unfazed. From that moment on, my brain started doing what it does best, overthinking. I couldn't help but wonder, what kind of guy was he? Why did she never talk about him in any detail? Did he even know how lucky he was? Because if I had someone like Gabriella, there'd be no way I'd let her go through a whole day without feeling seen. But I never said any of that to her. I respected the boundary. But silently, I believed I could treat her better than whoever that guy was. And that wasn't pride talking. That was an observation. I could tell she wasn't being loved the way she deserved. I didn't know the full story yet. Still, I stayed in my lane and kept it professional, kept it friendly. But every day, my feelings got stronger. I'd go home and tell myself to snap out of it. Remind myself that she had someone. But then we'd meet again the next day, and she'd laugh at something I said. And I'd be right back where I started, wondering what it would be like if I was the one she called hers. I didn't know what the future held, but the more I learned about her, the more complicated it became. Even after the project ended, Gabriella and I didn't just drift apart like colleagues usually do. In fact, that's when things between us really started to change. We kept in touch. At first, it was casual, but before I knew it, we were confiding in each other, sharing bits of our lives we hadn't told anyone else. She opened up to me slowly. At first, she'd say little things that hinted something was off. Eventually, it slipped out she had a boyfriend. But the way she spoke about him that day told me everything I needed to know, that the guy wasn't good to her. He was emotionally absent, the type who only reached out when it was convenient for him. She told me that she'd literally beg for his attention sometimes. She'd wait hours for a response, cancel her own plans just to match his schedule, and feel like she was walking on eggshells most days. It was like she was trying to earn love that should have been given freely. It hurt to hear. I didn't show it, but inside, I was angry. She talked about it like it was just the way things were, like she had accepted this was what love was supposed to feel like. And even as she wiped tears while recounting the cold texts and empty promises, she'd always say the same thing at the end. I love him. I remember one night, I asked her straight up, why you keep crying over a guy who clearly doesn't care? Her answer? Just a mumbled mess of words I couldn't even make sense of. Then she looked up and said softly, because I love him. That was it. I sat there staring at her, thinking, how? How can you still love someone who makes you feel this small? I didn't get it. I still don't. But what messed me up more was how my feelings didn't pull back. They grew. The more I saw her cry, the more I wanted to be the one who made her smile again. I know that sounds twisted, like her pain was fueling my affection. But that's what was happening. Watching her get broken down by someone who couldn't care less made me want to protect her. Hold her up, be the one constant she could lean on. I couldn't walk away. I didn't want to. I was already in too deep. And I hated that, because it made me question myself. Why was I falling harder for someone who wasn't even available emotionally? One evening, I got a message from Gabriella. I opened the message, and it said she had ended things with her boyfriend. I read it twice just to be sure I wasn't misinterpreting it. She was done with him. Part of me felt happy. It was a quiet wave of relief you feel when someone you care about finally walks away from something or someone that's been hurting them. But if I'm being brutally honest, I was also glad because it gave me hope. Selfish? Maybe. But I had spent months watching her break down, cry over him, bend herself just to be noticed, just to be heard. And now she was free. After that, things between us shifted enough that I noticed. She started talking to me more. She laughed more around me and let her guard down a little. We started going out more frequently. If you saw us from afar, you'd think we were dating. No one would guess we were just co-workers. I became her safe space, and I welcomed it. Still, I was careful. I didn't rush anything. I didn't want to be the rebound or the emotional bandage. I wanted her to feel whole again by herself before anything else. So I gave her time. I covered for her at work when she needed a break. If she needed someone to talk to, I was there. If she needed silence, I respected that too. Through it all, I felt like she saw me differently, as someone who genuinely cared. Someone who didn't want anything from her but peace and healing. I spent months showing up for Gabriella, but my feelings didn't go away. They grew. Every time she leaned her head on my shoulder or sent me a random "thank you for being you" message, I felt like maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to see me the way I saw her. It took me a long time to build the courage to share my feelings with her. I kept thinking, what if she's just waiting for me to say something first? I convinced myself that being honest was the least I owed myself. So one night, when we were just sitting in my car after grabbing a bite, I looked at her and said, "I care about you. More than just a friend." My voice shook a bit. I wasn't expecting her to jump into my arms. I just wanted her to know how deep this ran for me. But the silence that followed made everything feel cold. She didn't look at me right away. She just stared out the window for a moment, then looked down, took a slow breath, and said softly, "I don't feel the same. I think we should just be friends." It felt like someone had slammed a door on my chest. Still, I smiled, nodded like it was fine, and said, "I understand." I said it to make her feel better. But inside, I knew something had changed. I wasn't going to keep pretending I was okay with crumbs when I was offering a full meal. I wasn't going to stay in the background. That night, I made a silent promise to myself. I was done playing the role of her emotional support system when she couldn't return what I gave. So I started pulling back, slowly but intentionally. I stopped texting first. I didn't call anymore. I stopped waiting for her outside the office or checking in when she sounded off. The late-night phone calls ended. The lunch hangout stopped. I even removed her from my social media, not as a petty move, but because every time I saw her face or her posts, it reopened a wound I was trying to close. At work, we still saw each other. That part didn't change. But now it was just a quiet "hey" in the hallway. Everything, now, reduced to professional distance. I needed it. I needed space from the girl who had my heart but didn't want it. This was about protecting myself. Setting a boundary wasn't cruel. It was necessary. Because love shouldn't be one-sided, and friendship shouldn't feel like emotional labor when your heart is still healing. One quiet evening at the office, when most people had already packed up and left, and the usual hum of chatter had died down to the occasional footsteps. I was at my desk, finishing up some files, when I saw Gabriella. She stood there for a second like she was gathering the courage to say something. Then she walked up to me. Her voice was soft but direct. "Hey, where have you been? I miss talking to you. Why did you block me on all social media?" I looked at her, then took a breath before I spoke, because I didn't want my words to come out as spiteful. I told her, "You said you just wanted us to be friends. And I meant it when I said I understood. But what you probably didn't realize is, understanding also meant stepping away. Because what I wanted isn't what you wanted. And I couldn't keep pretending it didn't matter." She didn't say anything at first. Just stood there and took it in. "Just the same way I understood you," I said again, this time slower. "I expect you to understand me too." She nodded, slowly. Her face looked tired, like someone carrying the weight of a choice they were no longer sure about. Then, without saying another word, she turned and left. So sometime after our last conversation, I heard through the grapevine that Gabriella had gotten back with her ex. The same toxic guy who barely made time for her, who treated her like she was disposable. I didn't hear it from her directly, of course. By then, she and I weren't really talking anymore. I won't lie, hearing that stung at first. I had watched her cry over this guy. I had been the one she leaned on when he ignored her texts, when she felt small and unwanted. I had offered her peace, not pressure. And, after all of that, she still went back to him. But strangely, instead of getting angry or hurt, something inside me just switched off. It was like a fog finally cleared from my head. I could see everything for what it really was. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough for her. It's that she didn't know how to recognize something good when it was right in front of her. My feelings didn't just fade. They evaporated. That news was all I needed to finally let go for real. It didn't even take long before the cracks showed again. The so-called reconciliation fell apart faster than it started. But this time, it wasn't just emotional manipulation. No, this time it escalated and got violent. She had to involve the police. She missed days at work. HR got involved. I just sat at my desk, watching it all unfold like some twisted movie. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't feel sorry for her. Because I knew I would never, ever lay a hand on a woman I love. Not even in my lowest moment. And yet, somehow, that was the man she chose over me. That was the person she tried to fix things with. She couldn't see the difference between someone who wanted to build her up and someone who slowly tore her down. And because of that, she chose the pain she was familiar with over the love she never gave a chance. I wasn't going to be a backup plan. I wasn't going to be her rescue team every time she ran back into the fire and got burned. That chapter, for me, was done, sealed shut. And if I needed any final proof that I made the right decision to walk away, well, that was it. That night, my phone rang just as I was winding down. It was Gabriella. I hesitated before answering, already sensing this call wouldn't be casual. The moment I picked up, she didn't waste any time. Her voice was soft, but heavy, like it had been soaked in tears. She said, "I really need you right now." And for a second, the old version of me stirred. But that guy wasn't in charge anymore. So I took a breath and told her, "I'm sorry, Gabriella. I can't be that person for you anymore. I'm talking to someone else now, and I'm trying to build something." She went quiet for a moment, then said something that almost made me laugh because it was so painfully ironic. She said, "I didn't know what I was thinking when I told you we should just be friends. And then, you didn't even put any pressure on me after I said it." She was right, I hadn't. Because I respected her choice. I told her gently, "It's in the past, Gabriella. We don't need to revisit it." She didn't respond right away. I could tell she was expecting a different version of me to pick up the phone that night, the one who would have driven over in the middle of the night, no questions asked. But that man was gone. I told her good night and ended the call. I meant every word. The truth is, I found peace in talking to someone new. At the office, Gabriella still finds little excuses to linger around me. I see her waiting for when the hallway is empty or when I'm alone at the coffee machine. She starts conversations that don't really need to happen. I'm not rude. I greet her, nod, maybe exchange a few polite words, but that's it. I've thought about whether I want to stay on at the firm once my internship wraps up. Honestly, I don't know. What once felt like a dream job doesn't carry the same weight anymore. My goals have shifted. My peace of mind matters more now than a name on a resume. Looking back, some people think silence is cruel. But here's the truth they don't understand. Sometimes silence is the last kind of respect you can give to yourself. That's something I had to learn the hard way. I wasn't trying to punish Gabriella when I stopped reaching out. I wasn't playing games or trying to make her miss me. I just realized that sticking around, constantly showing up for someone who didn't see me the same way, was slowly breaking me. And I couldn't keep doing that to myself. You see, when someone tells you, "Let's just be friends," it sounds simple. But what it really means, especially when you've opened your heart to them, is this: you're good enough for comfort, but not for love. And maybe they don't mean it that way, but that's how it feels.